All right, y'all, we're going to do causes of the Great Depression. So we've kind of gone over some of the Roaring Twenties, the jazz, the dancing, the new woman, flappers, all that stuff. But another reason why it's called the Roaring Twenties is because of the economy was really booming after World War One. You have this consumer culture. People are buying magazines, they're buying cars, they're buying clothes, they're buying radios. And a lot of this, people call it pent-up demand from World War One. So there is a problem though. People are buying things, but they actually don't have a whole ton of money to buy stuff. So what people do is they go into debt or they buy on credit. So some people call this like false prosperity. It is, there is an inequality of income that does not allow many people to buy what they want. And so rather than buying it outright, they're buying it on credit. So I'd buy my car on credit, my house, all of these things. And corporations are doing really well, but in fact, they are overproducing. So while it seems like people can buy new cars and clothing and radios, this can't stay forever because people don't actually have money to buy it. So there are problems of overproduction. There are problems in inequality of wealth. And the other thing is stock market is making a lot of money for a lot of people. So a lot of people feel like they are very rich because they are doubling and tripling their money on the stock market where there's little regulation and banks are also investing money. So there's this idea of it being a sense of false prosperity, that these 20s look really stylish and new, but it is covering up a lot of issues. There is a more modern economy. There is less agriculture. So after World War II, farming declines and farming income actually declines as well. So GDP is increasing massively, but most of it is not coming from farming. So one reason why the United States economy is growing is because after World War I, Europe is, destroyed. And so the United States is providing a lot to the rest of the world. Incomes do increase, but there is a very unequal distribution of wealth. Stock market is increasing 20% per year. Just imagine making 20% per year, doubling your investment, over the course of a couple of years. People are investing a lot of money in the stock market. And people are also going into debt to buy on the stock market. This is called buying on margin. So people were going into debt, investing in the stock market, and feeling like they have a lot of money. Banks are also heavily invested in the stock market. And the tax rate is going to go down for the richest people. So one example of a changing society in manufacturing is Ford. Ford is actually going to lower its price for cars so that most folks can afford it. The Model T only costs like $300, and many people are buying this on credit. In 1929, 26 million cars were registered. Women are also driving. Before this, it was very difficult for women to drive because the cars were not very user-friendly. So we're also going to get gas station, motels, restaurants, insurance. The cars are going to drive a lot of, new and changing society. So Harding is coming in after World War I, and he is saying we should return to normalcy. And essentially, this is going back to those laissez-faire politics from before, during the Gilded Age. He's going to put his friends in charge. We have tax cuts for the rich. We are moving away from the progressive era and back to almost what it was like during the Gilded Age. We're also going to have corporate scandals. One of them is like Teapot Dome, where essentially people are selling access to oil in the Teapot Dome for their friends without competitive bidding. Harding is actually going to die suddenly. His wife was reading to him. Some people think she might have killed him. But anyway, he was having an extramarital affair. But Harding is this idea of return to normalcy, going back away from these progressive things. There are a lot of scandals during the Harding administration, back to these ideas of, corruption and other things that were happening during the Gilded Age. Coolidge is going to be the next president, and it was Keep Cool with Coolidge. Famously, he was very quiet. He was called Silent Cal, and he is famous for not doing much, right? Like, this guy really got the job, and he was like, I am not going to do anything, and people loved him for it. So what he is going to do is keep up these tax cuts. He is going to contribute to more of the income inequality. He's going to go more to limited government, more laissez-faire, and he's essentially just going to have this hands-off approach to government. And he is also an isolationist. So Coolidge just basically wants to reduce the size of the government, remain isolationist, and reduce regulation and cut taxes. And the guy who helps him cut these taxes is called Mellon. He is the economic advisor who helps him do that. So stock prices are going up and up and up. People are buying on margins. There's high confidence. Things are going well. But this is all kind of like a positive feedback loop. Because the market is doing well, people are making money. And because people are making money, the market does well. But you have to keep in mind some of the problems with the 1920s, right? Overproduction, debt and income inequality. So this is one of the major problems. Ford actually understood this, and he actually increases his wages for Ford assembly workers so that they could afford jobs. But this is not happening everywhere else. So production is going to outpace demand, and people are going to go into debt. And this is kind of a classic bubble, but this is like a manufacturing bubble where people are making too many radios, they're making too many cars, they're making too many whatever, right? And so when you get a blip in the system and people can no longer afford to, buy stuff, it's going to cause a crash. The other thing is overproduction, not just overproduction by the corporations, but also by farmers. We've seen this before. The more farmers farm, the less money they get. The prices of crops are going down, and farmers are really left out of the prosperity of the 1920s. The other thing that happens is the Federal Reserve and monetary policy. They're going to set low interest rates in the 1920s, which is also going to kind of contribute to this credit bubble. And when the Fed is going to increase interest rates, this is going to burst. So there's too much credit, there is too much debt, there is too much income inequality, there is too much production, and this is going to lead to the stock market crash. I'm probably going to give this video to y'all for Friday. But I think one of the things to think about with a stock market crash is that it is a symptom, not a kind of cause. So there's not just one stock market crash, there's multiple stock market crashes. But starting in 1929, essentially the Dow Jones is going to plummet. And people who thought they had money no longer have money, and some people are in debt. So if I had debt up here, right, and I thought I was making money, when I have to pay off this debt, what I realize is that I don't have money, and I also have a ton of debt. Banks had also invested in the stock market, so when the stock market crumbled, banks no longer had money, and the banks are very unstable. This is going to cause what's called a run on the bank, where people try to withdraw their savings at the time. Probably one of the most famous scenes is going to be from It's a Wonderful Life. I don't know if this is even going to show. This is the bank run scene, but I don't think it's actually going to work. So you can watch that sometime. But if you watch It's a Wonderful Life, it's a famous holiday movie, they have a run on the bank that they try to prevent. Unemployment is going to increase. So as the stock market crashes, as we have, corporations are overproducing, they don't no longer have to produce anymore. So this is going to lead to rampant unemployment. The highest is 24.9%, so like 25%. 1 in 4 people are out of work. Unemployment remained above 14% from 1931 to 1940. So unemployment is an issue. On top of all this, we have an environmental disaster called the Dust Bowl. We have overgrazing on the Great Plains. Essentially, people have been plowing up the West, believing the rain will follow the plow. Basically, just getting rid of all the grasslands, killing off the bison, putting cattle down. And when you take off that topsoil, when you take off the grasses, it is going to cause like the topsoil to erode. And when this topsoil erodes, you get dust. When the winds pick up, it went back to kind of like a semi-arid drought. And when this drought happens, just basically the winds pick up the dirt and it causes these huge dust bowls. This is not just one thing. It happens over and over and over again. It is kind of like another positive feedback loop where it's like the dust creates dust. It creates static electricity. Some of these dust storms you could see in New York City, they are enormous. So the most concentrated area is going to be in Oklahoma and Kansas and Texas. And these folks are going to get in their Model Ts and they're going to go to California to try to find a new way of life. So you get a mass migration out of the Dust Bowl during this time. With all of these problems, Hoover is now the president, and he believes that, although the government should, although the people should help the government should not help the people. He believed in what was called volunteerism. He still believes in laissez-faire economics. He still believes that the government shouldn't have a role. And so he does not do much to help with this. The one thing he does do is the Reconstruction Finance Corporation, where he tries to give money to the banks, but it doesn't end up helping as much. He is going to pass the Smoot-Hawley tariff, which was trying to reduce imports, but this is actually going to make matters worse, because if we could export, it would have been better. And he is going to raise taxes to help with balance the budget. But none of these things work. He is highly unpopular. He does encourage charity. He believed in individualism. And he believed that the spread of government destroys initiative and thus destroys character. But when you have this high unemployment and people are suffering, people start to call Hoovervilles, these shanty towns after Hoover, Hoover blankets for newspapers, Hoover flags where your like pants pockets out. People did not like Hoover. There are some protests, like one is at the Ford Motor Company where they go on a hunger strike. Farmers are using violence to intimidate and try to as people are trying to buy back their farms, they're going to smash produce. They're trying to do anything they can to keep these prices up. One of the most famous protests is going to be the bonus army. Thousands of World War I vets go to Washington, and essentially what they ask for is they want their bonuses early so that they can eat. And Hoover actually ends up burning down their shantytown. This is not going to be popular. So he actually kills an infant with a tear gas canister. These World War I vets are driven out of their protest, and this is just seen as the end of it all. So FDR is going to rise up, and his idea is the only thing to fear is the fear itself. He has an idea that the government should help people, and he spreads the idea of the New Deal, which is where the government should help people. And FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, is going to win hands down in the election of 1932. So again, causes of the Great Depression is inequality of wealth, too much consumer debt, overproduction, monetary policy, they're contracting money, tariffs, fiscal policy, environmental disaster, poor banking practices. These are the reasons we have the Great Depression. The stock market crash is the beginning of the Great Depression, but the stock market crash is like a fever, right? It is a symptom of these underlying problems. It is probably not the cause. Today we have, our COVID crisis, which is kind of part of this. We have a very high unemployment rate today. It's getting a little bit better, but we were basically at Great Depression levels of unemployment not that long ago. And the Dow has been crashing down. And yeah, sorry, these are just kind of extra. That's it. So your homework is to yeah, to do one of those comparisons, either a song or a movie, or you can compare Trump to Hoover, or anything you want. It's online. Hopefully we'll talk about comparing the Great Depression to COVID and how do we deal with these problems. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.